Hello viewers, and welcome to the Road to Rivendell, the latest installment in the LOTR LCG progression series, a production by Cardboard of the Rings, the bi-weekly podcast about the Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. Joining you as always, my name is Mitch, and with me is Matthew.
Hello, boys and girls.
So, Matthew, why don't you introduce us to our latest scenario?
Our heroes are continuing their journey northward towards Rivendell, escorting Arwen to visit her father, Elrond. But the road is long, and orcs ambush the party along the way. With enemies hounding the heroes' steps, the weather drives the party even closer to the looming mountains and the dangers they hold.
So, now that we've been caught up on our story, why don't we go ahead and take a look at our player deck, starting with myself. And just like in the previous video, I'm going to be running a Tri-Sphere deck. As per usual, I'm going to be including Dane Ironfoot in this deck for his potent attack and willpower boost to all dwarf characters in play. Because there are so many different cards from so many different spheres that I'm trying to include in this deck, I didn't end up with too many allies, so I think Frodo Baggins is going to be absolutely invaluable just because there's a strong probability I'm going to have enemies engaged with me, and if I have to take a lot of attacks, I'd much rather gain a little bit of threat than losing allies or even losing a hero. Biffer is one opportunity that I'll have to try and smooth some of my resources. I've got a lot of questing effects, a little bit of healing effects. I do have quite a few attachments in this deck. There are a lot of cards in the encounter deck that can destroy attachments, but it's really difficult to play without them, and hopefully if I can try to get the majority of these on Matthew's side of the table, we can kind of use selective engagement to minimize our attachment loss. And then I've got a host of events, including our brand new Lure of Moria, to just be fantastic against this encounter deck. So Matthew, what are you running this time?
Well, yet again, I am playing with Gimli, Thalin, and Dwalin. There's only one change to my deck from our last video, in case you remember, and that is I took out 2 Descendant of Thorndors and added 2 Winged Guardians. Otherwise, I think my deck has been performing pretty well. I didn't want to tweak it too much, so there you go.
Well, now that we've covered both of our decks, I think tradition so far has been that I'm the first player. Shall we go ahead and stick with it?
Who am I to break tradition?
Alright, so I'll make myself the first player for our first round. Why don't we go ahead and shuffle our decks, and before we do setup for this quest, why don't we go ahead and draw our starting hand of 6 cards. And it looks like my hand is pretty decent. I've got my resource acceleration, I've got some card advantage, potent willpower. I don't have any cancellation effect, but how about yourself?
I drew a cancellation effect, but it's of the combat variety.
Okay.
I have something that will help us quest a little bit better. I've got some cheap allies and an attachment. So my hand's not. I think it's fine. I think I'm going to keep it.
Okay. And hopefully with the card advantage effects I've got, we'll be able to get some of our cancel when revealed as quickly as possible. So I guess we're both going to pass on our opportunity to take a mulligan.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our very first quest card, and this is Quest Phase 1A, and it reads Setup. Put Arwen Undomiel into play under the control of the first player. So just like last time, we have Arwen sitting here on the table with her 2 willpower, 1 defense, 2 hit points, and no attack strength. She's a pretty potent quester, so after she exhausts, we pick any hero on the board to gain 1 resource, and if at any point she leaves play, in this scenario it'll be through damage if it happens, then we lose the scenario and are defeated. Just the same as most scenarios, the other part of setup here is we have to reveal 1 card from the encounter deck per player and add it to the staging area. So let's go ahead and verify that our encounter deck has been shuffled. And let's take a look and see what we get. So encounter card number 1 is a Followed by Night. So when revealed, the first player, me, chooses to deal 1 damage to all allies in play, and it gains Surge, or all enemies engaged with players make an immediate attack if able. enemies are not able to make an attack, I will pick the latter effect, and it does absolutely nothing. So, card number 2 is a wild bear. So engagement cost 34, threat 0, 2 attack, 3 defense, 5 hit points, and it introduces our new keyword. So this is called ambush, and it reads, after this enemy enters play, each player makes an engagement check against it. So we always start with the first player and then work our way around this digital table in a clockwise manner. So my threat is currently 25, Matthew's threat is currently 29, so this wild bear is going to sit in the staging area, contributing 0 threat. So, certainly not a bad start by any means. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at Quest Phase 1B, and there's no card text, it just reads 20 quest progress to pass it. So, I suppose we might as well go ahead and take our first turn. If we draw a card, do our resources, and I ended up drawing a cancel when revealed effect. And the reason that we really want this is there are a couple of treachery cards unique to this scenario that are absolutely game-breaking. I think I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 resource token from Biffer in order to play an Erebor Record Keeper here. And that is all I'm going to be doing.
Okay, I am going to spend 2 of my resources to play a Winged Guardian, and that's it for me.
Fantastic. I guess something for you to keep in mind is as we, keep plugging along through this scenario, I'm going to be able to put a healer into play pretty quickly. So even though once we hit the 3rd quest phase, we're not going to be doing any healing whatsoever, we're certainly likely to get a lot of damage before then. So for questing, I think I'm going to go ahead and commit quite a bit. So I'm going to send Arwen, I'll send the Record Keeper, Biffer, and Frodo for a total of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for me. For Arwen, let's see, I guess you could certainly use a tactics resource.
I don't have any tactics events, so it wouldn't help me in the short term, but I'm not going to turn down a resource if you don't think you need it.
Yeah, I guess especially since you've got your Winged Guardian in play, why don't I go ahead and throw that resource to Gimli, I suppose.
Okay.
And who are you going to be committing?
I'll send Thalon.
Alright. Well, it looks like we're going to go ahead and contribute a total of 11 willpower to the quest. We are currently up against a total of 0 threat. And let's see what we get for staging. So card number 1 is a Crebain, which surges, and while it's in the staging area, encounter card effects cannot be cancelled. So this is bad. It is replaced by a Goblin Spearman, so it gets +2 if the attack is undefended. Of course, we've got to do Thalon's damage to both of these enemies. And let's go ahead and do our final card, which is another Goblin Spearman. So this is actually a lot of nasty enemies so far. This is going to make a total of 6 threat against us, which means we're going to end up making 5 progress. We don't have any options to travel. I guess none of the enemies that we reveal have ambush effects. So what do we want to do here? I guess I'm the first player, so one of these is going to come down and engage me no matter what. So do you want to optionally engage a Spearman or the Crebain?
Well, I was thinking that I should take the Crebain because I can do an undefended, I can kill it with Gimli, and that way we'll be able to cancel shadow effects.
Sure.
Or, I'm sorry, encounter card effects.
Sure. Okay, so you'll snag that Crebain. I guess a Spearman is going to come down to me no matter what.
Yep.
For engagement checks, it looks like I've got that one Goblin Spearman, and then the other one is going to come down and engage with you. So fortunately, I don't take both. Let's go ahead and do combat. So shadow cards starting with the first player, and the highest engagement cost. And note that Wild Bear's sitting up here, not hurting anybody. Let's see. I guess I'll go ahead and defend against my Spearman with Dane Ironfoots, and no effect on this shadow card. So I guess as we get into some of these later scenarios, the order in which encounter cards are discarded really starts to matter. So we're going to start following the rules now and not actually discard these shadow cards until they normally should be discarded. So how do you want to resolve your attacks?
I'll do the Crebain first, and I'll do it undefended.
Alright, so shadow card is... if the defending character is an ally, discard it from play.
Wow.
It seems like in all of my play experiences, we've just had an uncanny ability to dodge things like this in sudden pitfall. So how do you want to deal with goblins?
I mean, I suppose if I had used the Winged Guardian, it would have gotten discarded, and I still wouldn't have had any damage, but it would have sucked to lose the Guardian.
Right, right.
So for the Goblin Spearman, I am going to have my Winged Guardian defend.
Okay, and the shadow card is one of our Orc ambushes.
Good.
So this is actually one of the worst cards in this deck, just because late game, when revealed, all Orc enemies in the staging area engage the first player. Normally not a big deal, but if there are no Orc enemies in the staging area, you return all Orc enemies in the encounter discard pile to the staging area. I played a game with Brandon and Brian, and I think this ended up returning something like 20 enemies to play.
I think I remember that video.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I've been meaning to say for tens of videos now is, one thing I like about doing our series and doing it on the computer is that card art is so much bigger than the actual card, and I noticed so many things I've never noticed before. The art on Orc Ambush, now that I have my mouse hovered over it and I'm looking at it, is really kind of cool. So, and I notice these sorts of random things on random cards all the time, and so I just figured, oh, now's the time I'll say it, because I think about it every video and never say it. But anyway, so Winged Guardian survives. I'm going to, I think for the first time ever in our progression series, keep him alive by paying the one resource you so kindly donated to me.
Okay.
From Gimli.
Sounds pretty good. And for attacks, I cannot do anything to deal with my enemy, and how about you?
Well, I really wish Dane was ready. I understand you need to defend him, because if Dane was ready, I could kill the Crebain with Gimli, and I could have the extra attack on Dwalin to kill the Spearman and then lower my threat. That would have been the best case scenario. So there's a couple of different ways I could go here. There are some shadow effects, like the shadow effect on the Crebain that returns to the staging area. That would be awful in case some of those nasty treacheries pop up. So while this might not be the best strategic move, I'm going to hold on to the Spearman because I think I've got a way to deal with it next turn. And so I am just going to use... it doesn't really matter, but I'll use Dwalin to kill the Crebain.
Okay. Maybe Matthew and I psyched ourselves out going into this scenario, having had bad experiences with Sleeping Sentry, but Crebain is going to be killed. Anything else from you?
No, that's it.
Alright, so...
I mean, Gimli could attack, but nothing's getting through, so there's no point.
So, let's see. For these shadow cards, the order I don't think matters during this quest, so I'll go ahead and discard all of those at the end of combat. Shall we go ahead and ready?
Sounds good.
Alright, so Control R. I'll go ahead and make you first player. I'll put Arwen Undomiel on your side of the board. We can go ahead and draw our... draw a card and do our resources. And what are you going to be doing on planning?
Alright, so I am going to use 2, and I'm going to pay for the Veteran Axe Hand.
Alright.
And that... I'm going to conserve my leadership, or my spirit resources, and so that's it for me.
Okay. Alright, so for my turn, I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 resources off of Dane, and I'm going to go ahead and play Steward of Gondor on Dane Ironfoot. I'm going to go ahead and trigger that right away, and I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 resource for a Campfire Tales, so we can each draw a card. And I ended up getting something great. So I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 lore resource for a second Erebor Record Keeper. And I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 more leadership resource for another copy of Campfire Tales. So go ahead and draw another card.
Oh, okay.
And I got a fantastic Questing Spirit Dwarf. So looks like we might be able to start generating a lot of progress here. So I think that's it for me. Shall we go ahead and do questing?
So, alright. I'm going to send Thalin, of course.
Uh-huh.
I will send Arwen, and I'll put that resource on Thalin.
Okay.
And I think that 4 is all that I'm going to send.
Okay, for me, I'm going to go ahead and send a fair few characters. I'm going to be doing
Okay.
a total of 9, I suppose, same as last
Okay.
time. So we're going to have a combined total of 13. If we need, I can send another 3, but we can wait till we see what we get. So,
Okay.
staging card number 1. Let's hope for another wild bear. Oh,
Nope.
God. So,
Oh,
Orc
no.
Raiders. And this is actually the perfect timing here. So, this says Orc Raiders Ambush. So, it enters play. Each player makes an engagement check against it, starting with the first player. Your threat is
Okay.
30, which is higher than its engagement cost of 21.
Yep.
It engages you right away and forced. After it engages a player, you discard 2 attachments you control, if able. And it looks like you don't have any.
Yeah, I was thinking about playing one this turn, so I am awfully glad that I didn't.
Great, and this is, I think, one of 3 copies in the 56 or so card encounter deck. It does, of course, take 1 damage from Thalon. And card number 2 is a Barren Hills. So while it's the active location, we ignore Ambush entirely. So
Nice.
I guess that's it. We're up against a total of 2 threats. It looks like we're going to end up making 11 progress. So I think I need not spend that spirit resource. We're probably going to plow through this next turn. So I'll go ahead and put 11 progress tokens on our current quest card, which puts us at 16 out of 20. Looks like we're speeding right along. So, all right, travel. Do we want to go to the Barren Hills?
Sure. I mean, well, it doesn't matter to me either way.
Yeah, I think we might as well. It's probably a safe decision. So we'll travel there. For engagement, shall we just let the wild bear sit? Okay. So let's see. For combat, shadow cards go as follows. So how do you want to deal with your attackers here?
Let's... Oh, I was doing some random right-clicking on the screen. Let's see. The Orc Raider swings for the most, so I'll have my Winged Guardian defend against him.
Alright, so attack of 3 incoming. Shadow card is another Orc Ambush. Great.
That's pretty fantastic. And then I will use Arwen's generously donated resource to, once again, keep my Winged Guardian alive.
Fantastic. And how about your Goblin Spearman?
So for the Goblin Spearman, I will use my Veteran Axe Hand.
Okay, so let's go ahead and see what the shadow card is. And this is return attacking enemy to the staging area after it attacks. So let's get rid of that arrow. It's going to return to the staging area, and I guess your axe hand ends up taking 1 point of damage. Now that you've done yours, Goblin Spearman is attacking me. I'll use Dane as a defender. And I'm going to go ahead and flip the shadow card, which is nothing. So Turbulent Waters. And how do you want to deal with attacking?
Well, let's see. I will use Gimli and Dwalin to attack this orc.
Alright, so Gimli and Dwalin should be a total of 4 combined, which is going to be enough to kill Orc Raiders.
And due to Dwalin's super spiffy ability, I can lower my threat by 2.
Alright, so of course I've got no way of attacking this Goblin Spearman back. Let's go ahead and get these shadow cards off the table here. And I guess that brings us to the end of the round, so shall we ready? Alright, if you'd oh so kindly make me first player, I'll take back Arwen. I'll draw a card, and I will do my resources. And I'll trigger my steward. Alright, so for my turn, I'll do something we've yet to see in this series, and I'm going to go ahead and pay 2 from Dane for a Dunedain cash on Gimli. So he has the ranged keyword.
Isn't that exciting?
Maybe he can help a little bit with this Spearman. So I'm also going to spend 1 resource off of Frodo for an Ancient Matham on our active location. It looks like somehow my record keeper's got a resource token, so I'll get rid of that.
Isn't that how they're supposed to be played?
Yeah, I think so. So it'd certainly make their ability stronger. And I think that is all I'm going to do at the moment. So how about your planning?
I will be playing a Sigil Miner for 2.
All right, great.
And then I will play a Dwarrowdelf Axe for 1.
Perfect. All right, so I guess shall we go ahead and do questing?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to commit quite a few as per usual. So I'm going to do 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 total. We're currently up against 2. We've got to make a total of 8. So what do you want to send?
Fallon and the digital miner, so I'll send 4.
Alright, so it's looking like we've got a total of 15.
What about Arwen's resource before we go any farther?
For her resource, I think in the interest of maybe getting a little bit of healing on the table or something like that, I'll throw it to Biffer, I think.
Okay.
So, alright, so let's see what we do for staging. Encounter card number 1 is Bitter Winds, and this is the first player must discard 3 resources from each hero he controls.
Yikes.
So this is kinda crappy, because I certainly am going to lose all of my spirit resources. If our next card happens to be, say, Sleeping Sentry, that's going to be a huge problem. But I don't want to use my spirit resource to cancel this effect, just because I want to keep that card in my hand. So I guess I'm going to have to let this resolve.
Okay.
So I'll strip all my resources off all my heroes.
Yikes.
And 2 out of 42 is our odds of drawing Sleeping Sentry. Let's see. Ah, we are lucky. So Goblin Taskmaster. First of all, we ignore Ambush because of our active location. And it's forced after it engages a player. It looks like it is going to come down and play with us. We have to pick a character to deal 2 damage to. So,
yeah, but don't forget Fallon's damage.
Right. So Fallon's damage goes on there. And it looks like we're going to be up against a total of 4. We're going to be making 11 progress, so 4 of that is going to go on our active location. And 7 of that is going to be going on our current quest phase. I'm going to go ahead and trigger Ancient Mathem real quick. So I'm going to draw 3 cards. And it looks like I got some fantastic stuff, including another cancel when revealed. And since we immediately have to progress to our next quest phase, we've got quest phase 2A, nothing but flavor text. Quest phase 2B, when revealed, search the encounter deck and discard pile for Goblin Gate and add it to the staging area if able. Then, if there is no active location, Goblin Gate becomes the active location. So this is a quite nasty encounter card. It's bright orange and easy to find, so there it is. Shuffle the encounter deck. Goblin Gate is the active location. It is 5 threat, 4 progress tokens. While active, the first enemy revealed from the encounter deck each round gains Ambush, and if it engages a player, it makes an immediate attack. So we want to get through this as quickly as possible. Now, we're at engagement. Our threat is still way lower than the Wild Bear, so we've got Goblin Spearman and Goblin Taskmaster. Both of these will come down to me unless you want to grab one.
I guess I will take the Goblin Taskmaster.
Alright, so there's that forced effect, so deal 2 damage to 1 character you control.
I'll do Gimli.
No reason not to, I suppose. And for me, I guess the Goblin Spearman is going to come down and tangle with me. So let's go ahead and do our shadow cards. So starting with myself, and then you. And I don't have any sort of cancel shadow effect, and of course I'm completely depleted of resources anyway. But let's see. I guess I'm going to have Goblin Spearman number 1, attack, defend with Dane Ironfoot. The shadow card is attacking enemy gets... looks like just +1, so he's going to swing for 3. Dane has 3 defense, no damage dealt. For the second attack, I could either do undefended, or you could be a total sport and toss your Winged Guardian over to block.
Yeah, sure. The Winged Guardian can defend for you.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and have him defend the attack. The shadow effect ends up not doing anything because the attack is not undefended. Do you want to pay a resource for keeping your Winged Guardian?
Oh, sure.
Alright. And now, how do you want to deal with your attack?
I will defend with Dwalin.
Alright, so an attack of 2, shadow card is nothing, so Dwalin takes no damage.
Yep.
And for attacking, I don't have anybody able to. How do you want to use Gimli this turn?
Really wishing I had Unexpected Courage, but I will use Gimli to attack one of your Goblin Spearmen.
Okay, let's get rid of the first one, I guess.
Right.
He's lived a longer life, so that
Right.
Goblin Spearman is killed.
Yep.
Its shadow effect is going to be gone. And I guess that's really all that you can do.
Yep,
So,
my axe hand does not have enough to get through to the Taskmaster.
Alright, so I'll pull off the shadow effects, and I guess Control R to ready. I'll make you first player. I'll toss Arwen over to your side of the table. I'll draw a card, and I'll do my resources. I ended up getting an ambush card, and there's a certain Istari you might know that I can use that with.
Okay.
But what are you going to play?
I'll pay 1 resource to pay Vassal of the Windlord.
All right.
And then I'm going to do 1 for an Dwarrowdelf axe on Dwalin.
All right. All right. For my turn, I guess all we really need to do is try and get through our location. If we can do our orc outpost, that's great. So let's see. I think the only thing I'm going to do for my turn is I'll strip 1 resource off of Dane and toss it to Biffer. And then I'll go ahead and move on into questing. And let's think for a sec. So I'm going to be able to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What are you possibly going to be able to do? So I guess our goal would be like 11, I think.
All right, so I will send Thalon.
Okay.
For 2, Sigil Miner for 2, and then Arwen for 2. So I'm sending 6.
Okay.
And we will give Frodo the resource.
Thank you very much. That'll fund his double cancel. I'm going to go ahead and send all of my characters for a total of 2, 4, 7, 8, 9. Looks like that brings us to a total of 15. I guess if I don't need to cancel a double sleeping sentry on my turn, I could potentially boost that by another 3. Hopefully we'll be able to burst down the Goblin Gate, and additionally, we just might be able to do our current quest phase as well, and then we just have 1 remaining quest card. I guess the scary thing here is the first enemy revealed from the encounter deck each round is going to gain ambush, but you're the first player, so that's okay with me. So
yeah, it's not a huge deal because it also would take their threat out of the staging area.
Right, so. Which would just help us progress all the quicker. So as always, hoping for wild bears. Encounter card number 1 is a Goblin Spearman. So
so he engages with me.
Right. So he'll come down, engage with you. Here's his shadow card.
All right, immediate attack.
Right. How do you want to block this?
Oh goodness gracious.
I guess.
Crap.
Remember, if things get crazy, I've got an Istari that can come in and help.
Kind of a tough choice here. I think I will defend with the axe hand because I'm going to lose an ally no matter what. Okay, well, let's go ahead and flip the shadow card, which is absolutely nothing. Right. So it does look like the veteran axe hand is killed. Unfortunately, no Horn of Gondor in play. Yep. But I guess let's go ahead and continue onward with staging. So card number 2 is a Pathless Country. So this is 3 threat, and after at least 1 progress token is placed on it, remove 1 progress token from it. So this is essentially immune to the Northern Tracker that neither of us are using. It looks like we're up against a total of 3 threat. We're going to make 12 progress. So 4 is going to go on our active location, which is explored, and then 8 is going to go on Quest Phase 2B. We're going to immediately pass on to Quest Phase 3A, that's nothing but flavor text, and then 3B, which is when revealed, reveal 1 card from the encounter deck per player and add it to the staging area. Characters cannot be healed. So let's see what we get. I guess this is going to be our final hurrah here. So card number 1 is another Pathless Country. Well, at least we don't. I was going to mention that it's a really nasty shadow effect that could potentially hurt Arwen. So good. I guess I'd rather see them in the staging area. Yeah, certainly. I guess when we were building our decks here, this was something we were both pretty concerned about, because not only would it kill Arwen potentially, but my record keepers would be dead. Your Winged Guardian, Vassal of the Windlord, Sigil Miner. It would just be devastating. So card number 2 is
A Orc
Boo.
Raiders. And this
No.
kind of sucks, because this is going to ambush with you. So
It does indeed suck.
this comes down, and it looks like you're going to have to pick 2 of your attachments to discard. So you can keep your axe on... I guess Dwalin is probably the best option.
Right, yeah, I was going to get rid of the 2 Gimli attachments.
Okay.
Unless you really want me to keep ranged.
No, don't worry about it.
Okay, so I'll get rid of my axe, and then you can take your
I'll
cash
discard
back.
the cash. All right. Well, it was nice to have that in
But don't
play
forget
briefly.
to put the Thalon damage onto the Orc Raiders.
Right, that's probably going to end up making a big difference here. So.
And then, did we want to travel to a location?
Well, let's see. I guess these are going to absorb a total of, like, 6 threats. So I guess we might as well travel to one of these. I think there's a chance that we might be able to pass this quest next turn, but if we do, I think we're probably gonna... 6 isn't gonna make the difference, so...
Okay.
This is active. So, for engagement, the wild bear is still sitting there in the staging area. Let's go ahead and do shadow cards. I guess let's get rid of the shadow card that was there during the quest phase. And starting with you, your highest engagement cost, working our way down. So something to keep in mind is I've got an Istari that I could drop into play right now to help take the heat off of you, or next turn during our big quest push, I could play him then. Or I guess I could potentially do both, since I've got sneak attack. So, how are you thinking about dealing with these attacks?
Well, I've got 3, obviously, and I have 4 ready characters which would mean I could only kill 1, potentially.
Well, I guess... How about I go ahead and pay 1 leadership resource, and I play a sneak attack.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
And I'm going to go ahead and pick Gandalf, of course, as the target. I'm going to go ahead and choose your hardiest enemy, which is this Goblin Taskmaster.
Okay.
So I'm going to deal 4 damage to that. It's immediately killed, and its shadow card is going to be discarded.
Cool.
So, now that you've only got a couple enemies to deal with, how do you want to do this?
Well, the Winged Guardian's gonna have to go away, and he will defend against the Orc Raiders.
Alright, so their highest attack strength enemy. The shadow effect kinda sucks. Add to the staging area. That's too bad. So, I guess the Winged Guardian forced effect kills it. How do you want to deal with Goblin Spearman?
I will defend with my Vassal of the Windlord.
Alright. And the shadow card is if this attack is undefended. Again, it's not.
That's good. I thought about doing it, so that's good.
Okay.
So Vassal, bye-bye.
Right. And it looks like that is that. So for my attack, I'm going to have Goblin Spearman defended by Dane. There is a shadow effect, and it says return attacking enemy to the staging area after it attacks. I
could cancel it.
Yeah, it's really, well, I guess I could kill it with Gandalf. I think just to ensure that we have some sort of cancel shadow effect, just in case we end up getting Sleeping Sentry or something very nasty, I'm going to go ahead and let this resolve, so he's going to go back to the staging area. Dane, of course, is going to take no damage. And how do you want to deal with your combats here?
Gimli will attack the Orc Raiders.
Okay, so he's going to swing for 4, which is enough to kill them.
Yep, and then Dwalin, because of his Dwarrowdelf axe, will insta-kill the Goblin Spearman.
Right, as if he didn't have enough strength to do it himself, so Spearman is killed, and it looks like you get to trigger his response. Fantastic. So we're both at the same threat here. End of combat. I'll discard our shadow card there.
Yep.
And
Gandalf goes away.
Gandalf bounces back to my hand. I guess, shall we go ahead and refresh?
Yep.
Alright, so refresh, if you'd be so kind as to make me the first player. I'll draw 1 card. I will do my resources. Trigger my steward. Alright, so for planning, I think we're going to be able to push through the scenario in this turn. I think you mentioned that you've got Untroubled by Darkness in your hand.
Yes, I mentioned I have something to pump up Dwarves' willpower.
Okay, well, maybe I was being a little presumptuous, but
Yes.
I think considering that, would you be able to throw one resource to Biffer?
Let me see what I was going to play. Yeah, I have a spirit resource to spare, so have at it.
Okay, and I can return the favor, I guess, with Arwen. So let me
Perfect.
boost up Biffer. I think what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 resources off of Biffer, 1 resource off of Dane, and I'm going to go ahead and play Gandalf.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
Okay.
For his ability, I suppose, in the interest of improving our score, I'll drop my threat down to 24. And I'm going to have him sitting in play. For you to keep in mind, I'd really like us to commit all of our characters, particularly dwarves, to the quest, this upcoming quest
Okay.
phase. I've got a new event I'd like to play.
Okay.
And I'm also going to be dropping in a unique spirit dwarf.
Okay.
I'm going to be able to cancel up to 2 when revealed effects, and I think if you'd be cool enough to play your dwarf boosting event, we might be able to push through the quest this upcoming round.
Okay.
Okay, so
Um,
what for your planning?
it sounds like you can do a lot more than I can do. I can play a little veteran axe hand.
Well, he's useful,
Yep. Yep.
and he's a
And
dwarf.
that's it for me.
All right.
Yeah, I use a dwarf, so that's it for me.
Great. So I think what I'm going to do is we'll move on to questing first of all.
Okay.
I suppose I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 resource from Frodo, and I'm going to go ahead and play Bofur. So
Okay.
I've got to spend 1 spirit resource to put him into play, exhausted and committed to a quest. At this point, I would like you to please play your spirit event.
Okay.
Great. So all dwarf characters are going to end up getting +1 willpower. Now I'm going to commit characters to the quest. I'm going to go ahead and commit all of my characters. For the resource, I'll go ahead and throw that to Dwalin, just to ensure that you've got
Okay.
cancel shadow effects in case this goes terribly wrong. And who
Okay.
are you going to commit to the quest?
Well, since you said to send everyone, I will.
Okay, so I'm going to spend 4 leadership resources off of Dane Ironfoot, and I'm going to go ahead and play Lure of Moria. So if you would ready all dwarf characters, and let's see, it looks like I'm going to be sending quite a few to the quest here. So totaling it up, I guess Dane himself is going to be benefiting from his bonus and Untroubled by Darkness, so 3 from Dane. Biffer is going to be bringing that to 7. The record keepers make 10 and 13. Gandalf brings it to 17. Frodo is 19. Arwen is 21. And Bofur makes it 25. So what are you going to be contributing here?
Okay, so my dwarves with Dane is 10, and then when I add in Untroubled by Darkness, I'm at 15.
All right. So it looks like we're going to be doing a total of 40 committed to the quest.
Wow.
Let's get rid of our 2 events here, and let's
Okay.
see what we revealed. So keeping in mind, I've got resources and allies to get rid of 2 cancel when revealed. Card number 1 is a plundered armory, so a 3-threat location. Card number 2 is a sleeping sentry. I'm glad that we got to at least show this so people would know what we're talking about. So this is when revealed, deal 1 damage to each exhausted character, then exhaust all ready characters. So this would only be damaging 3 characters, but it would completely ruin our lure from Moria. I'm going to spend 1 resource off of Frodo, and I'm going to go ahead and cancel this effect. So let's get rid of Sleeping Sentry. We're going to be up against a total of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 threat. So we're going to be making 30 progress. 6 is going to be absorbed by Pathless Country, since we're putting progress tokens on it. So Pathless Country is explored, and that is going to leave 24 progress tokens for our current quest cards. So it looks like we've got 24 out of the 13 that are required. Even though characters cannot be healed, it looks like we hardly ended up taking any damage at all. And at this point, we satisfy the victory conditions and have won the game. So, Matthew, any final thoughts about Road to Rivendell?
You know, part of me thinks that if this was a modern quest that have much smaller encounter decks, they're not 50 cards anymore. In some cases, they're only 20 or 30 some odd cards. Sleeping Sentry, the Orc Ambush, and all those things would have come up with much more frequency, which would have probably made this quest so much more difficult. So I think I was probably over-apprehensive about Arwen dying, only because I'd had her die before when I played this quest solo when it first came out. Otherwise, you know, given the way it went tonight, it was pretty much a walk in the park.
Yeah, I think you and I certainly put a ton of effort into kind of having a conversation with one another. How are we going to deal with this effect? What if we get Sleeping Sentry? I guess which is the entire point that both of us bothered to play Spirits. We certainly didn't have to deal with too many attacks coming off the encounter deck. Even seeing quite a few enemies, it really did not end up being too bad, and we certainly pushed through this quest much quicker than I was expecting us to. With this Tri-Sphere deck, I made sure to include 3 Daughters of the Nimrodel just because we were so worried about damage coming off the encounter deck here and there, but I think I definitely overestimated the potency of this quest. I just think the obvious problem with this is there are, you know, 2 different cards in the encounter deck that can absolutely just ruin the players.
Yeah, I was certainly worried about the Orc that makes you discard 2 attachments. It's like, oh my gosh, what if Gimli has, you know, damage and I only have 2 Citadel plates in play or something and then he dies because I have to remove them. Ended up, you know, certainly we had the effect happen, but he didn't lose anything that was too damaging. So it's definitely a fun quest. I mean, I don't dislike it. I'm not sure if there's a lot of replayability here, but it wasn't too bad. I had fun.
It certainly wasn't too bad. I've definitely had pretty frustrating experiences playing through this scenario, but this was a relatively innocent playthrough. But I think that about says it. So as always, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. We would love to hear in the comments below if some of your own play experiences in Road to Rivendell have gone quite a bit differently than ours did today. If you've thought of any changes we could make to our decks to make this a little bit more interesting or a little bit easier for us, feel free to share. Our next video is going to be our review and analysis of all the different player cards of the Watcher in the Water adventure packs, so check back soon.
Take care.